Hi everyone and welcome back. I hope that you enjoyed the networking with different employers in the booth there. So we're back now at the GSK session, if I can get my words out. And you'll see that I've got three people that have joined me now. So we've got Oyster, Jeffrey and Monique, who are going to bring to life some of the benefits of working at GSK and specifically on personal growth for Black Heritage colleagues. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what's on offer. And over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Anthony, and thank you everyone for joining this session. Like Anthony said, we're from GSK. I'll introduce myself first. My name is Oyster Momo, and I'm joined here with Jeffrey and Monique, who will introduce themselves after I've told you a bit about GSK. So, like Anthony said, the title of this presentation is Be You, Feel Good and Keep Growing. And really that's our ethos at GSK and what we'll be talking to you about today. In terms of content, like I said, I'll give you a brief overview of GSK and what we do, and then talk specifically about our employee resource groups, which are a fantastic way of celebrating people at GSK, providing routes for personal development. We'll then move on to an introduction to Jeffrey and Monique, and they'll tell you a bit about themselves, and then we'll finally do a question and answer session at the end. All right, so for those that don't know, at GSK, we are a science-led global healthcare company with a special purpose. This is quite a busy slide telling you who we are, but essentially, every day we try and improve the health of millions of people around the world via various different ways. 1, medicines, 2, vaccines, and finally, consumer health products. That's things like toothpaste that you might see in your bathroom cabinets. Importantly, we are separating and creating 2 new companies next year. So that was announced last year, and we'll be separating into a new GSK that's focused on preventing and treating diseases with vaccines and medicines, and a new company in consumer healthcare. In terms of what we do, we try and bring differentiated, high-quality medicines to those that need them, medicines and consumer healthcare products. We're trying to prevent and treat disease, like I said, meanwhile keeping people well with our scientific and technical capabilities that we have within GSK, all those talented people, as it mentions on that slide. What's our impact? Like I said earlier, GSK is a global company. We've got nearly 100,000 employees around the world, around 96 different countries, as you can see there. And the actual volume of packs of medicines and doses of vaccines and all of those products that I mentioned earlier reaches 6.6 billion just in 2020. So a massive, massive company working on a massive scale. In terms of how we do all that massive impact that I was talking about, we're really focused on innovation, performance, and trust. And that's all underlined by our culture, which is what we're here to talk to you about today. That culture then is embedded in our values and expectations. You can see them for yourselves on the slides there: patient focus, transparency, respect, and integrity being our values. And then our expectations, what we expect of each other, the ways that we work, are all around courage, accountability, development, and teamwork. And I love this slide. I think it really brings to life exactly what those values are and how we were tested in 2020 during the pandemic. This is a slide showing some of the scientists that were still working in our factories and labs during the pandemic. Like you can see on the slide, close to 3/4 of our employees did move to remote working. You can see that myself, Monique and Jeffrey are at home at the moment, but others quickly had to adapt their ways of working too to maintain safe ways of working and still deliver on GSK's mission and vision. And really, that brings me to why we do what we do. We are trying to improve the quality of human life by helping people do more, feel better, and live longer. A really great vision and purpose, if you ask me. So really around personal development, what we're here to talk to you about today is how we embed inclusion and diversity into everything that we do. I think this will really come to life when I talk to you about the employee resource groups that we have at GSK, and you hear from Jeffrey and Monique themselves. But essentially, we're trying to build equity, diversity and inclusion into the ways that we work so that we have a sense of belonging in the company for everyone. How do we do that then? That is our Be You, Feel Good and Keep Growing motto, underpinned by our modern employer agenda. So exactly as I said, we're trying to encourage people to bring their full selves to work and feel welcome in all aspects of that, feel good as well, and continue growing. Whether you join as early talent or when you're progressing on through various stages of your career, we want people to be able to keep growing through the company. So some of the ways that we support people in doing that is via our global employee resource groups, those ERGs. They're focused on 4 key areas, although there are many, many more of them than listed on this slide alone. So starting with the Disability Confidence Network, they are a fantastic ERG that are really focused on improving confidence, disability confidence, in the workplace, and making sure that we're all comfortable having conversations around ability and disability. Next on the slide, you can see our Ethnicity and Cultural Inclusion ERG, Embrace, which is all around agitating, celebrating and engaging people in conversations around ethnicity and culture. Next, we've got our Gender ERG, which is the Women's Leadership Initiative. It is called the Women's Leadership Initiative, but really open to all genders. And the point of that ERG is to improve gender parity in the workplace, talk about things that impact men and women, and make it an equal place for everyone to work. And finally, we've got our LGBT plus ERG spectrum, again, all around raising awareness, raising confidence in the workplace to have conversations around these various issues. So why I personally belong to an ERG? I do belong to all of these ERGs and actually lead the Women's Leadership Initiative ERG in our global headquarters in London. One, it's a great place to network. I'm sure many of you are networking already in the employer booths that you have on today, but these ERGs provide a space for me to connect with those 100,000 employees that I mentioned earlier in these global ERGs. They're also a great source of development opportunities. When I was talking about keeping growing throughout the company, in our ERGs, we provide opportunities to focus on leadership, to focus on managing teams, confidence and speaking up. There are lots of different development opportunities that you get by being in an ERG at GSK. Education as well. I did mention that I'm part of each of these ERGs, but I don't necessarily belong to one of the specific classes. So it really helps me educate myself and be an active ally for others in the workplace. Mentoring, it's a fantastic opportunity to gain mentorship as early talent. I think that's something that we can all benefit from, but also mentoring others, whether that's reverse mentoring and you're providing feedback and advice to others that may be more senior to you, that is also possible in our ERGs. Celebration, I'm quite a smiley person, as you can see just now, and it's a really fantastic resource, our ERGs, to celebrate others, whether that's the achievement of others or specific holidays that people have that really matter to them. I think it's really important that we recognise these things and celebrate what makes individuals themselves and what matters to them. That actually comes on to community and supporting colleagues. It really does foster that sort of family feeling in such a global company. I think you really can make these connections via the ERGs. And finally, making a difference. I think we have such an important mission at GSK, to help people do more, feel better and live longer. And we're trying to do that at a global scale. we also have so many employees around the world, and it's really important that we internally and externally are making a difference, making an impact in people's lives. And you really can do that via these employee resource groups. So that's enough from me. I'll hand over now to Jeffrey to introduce himself.
Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for joining this session. So quick introduction about me. So I'm Jeffrey Jamra, and I'm a data management subject matter expert here at GSK. So in a nutshell, I'm responsible for how our global manufacturing sites handle their data. And my remit is over 51 of these manufacturing sites. In terms of my background, I actually studied biomedical science, which is little to do with the function that I'm in now and my current role. And I got the role following 5 years. Well, let me backtrack for a second. So I actually did an industrial placement student with industrial placement year with GSK when I was still at university. And then I managed to secure a position in the graduate scheme. And finally, I became a certified IT consultant and then a logistics manager, and finally onto the role that I'm on now. So my typical day is spent mainly having meetings, as you can understand, because I'm in a global role. I need to have meetings with colleagues from the US, from Asia, and from Europe. And typically those meetings are to identify improvements. So how do we get slicker, and also in a safer way, how can we improve and facilitate the way that we set up our data, which is crucial to us being able to manufacture safe products which are compliant with regulation and safety standards. I would say my most memorable moment working for GSK was working on a project in Brazil. So whilst I was an IT consultant, because of the manufacturing sites and where they're located, I had to physically travel to many of these locations. And I would say Brazil was the highlight really of my time since I've been at GSK. And I would say that the best part of my role is really that diversity. So being able to work with people from different cultures and from different backgrounds, it really enriches me as a person. And I don't feel just, drained, let's say, after a day of work. I've actually leaving work feeling that, I'm actually growing as a person based on my interaction with the way different people think, or their cultures and their customs, and so on and so forth. So something that might surprise about my role is that it directly supports both the consumer and pharmaceutical products, which we make at GSK. Because as I've mentioned before, since I'm responsible for the governance and how we document the way that we manage data, this is a direct link to the products that we make and that you might be consuming, such as the toothpaste or the over-the-counter flu remedies, let's say. And yeah, that's enough about me.
Hi, I'm Monique and I'm an industrial placement student at GSK.
Monique, I think you're on mute.
Oh, can you hear me?
Sorry.
Yes, Monique, we can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, I'm Monique. I'm an industrial placement student at GSK, which means I've done 2 years at university and taken a year out to work in industry. I'm responsible, I'm in HR, so that stands for human resources. So a lot of my role involves like recruitment. So I'm recruiting the next cohort of placement students, and it also covers diversity and inclusion. So I facilitate STEM events, such as like work experience events or insight days for students. I study psychology right now at the University of Warwick, but I'm just taking a year out to work. So my typical day involves facilitating assessment centres. That's part of the recruitment process for our next lot of placement students. I also raise purchase orders and check in with our new starters. So like back in August, September, I was checking in with all the placement students, and I'm checking in with all the apprentices. My most memorable work moment was our trip to the Lake District. So about a month ago, me and all the other apprentices took a GSK trip to the Lake District. We did lots of outdoor activities like mountain climbing, hiking, canoeing. So yeah, it was like a development week, and we got to bond with other people. The best part about my role is that it's very people orientated, because it is human resources, so it's very people based, and that keeps me quite engaged. And something that might surprise you about my role is that some of it overlaps into procurement. So I didn't actually know this when I was applying, but some of it does involve like raising purchase orders and things like that. So it kind of widens my skill set, I guess.
Thank you so much, Monique. And I think that takes us to the end of the formal part of the presentation. We wanted to make sure we had plenty of time for Q&A. So I hope that you enjoyed this intro and insight into GSK and our employee resource group. And I'm really happy to start taking questions.
Hello. So that's it. I don't know if you want to stop sharing the. There we go. Thanks for that. Really interesting. I quite like the your strapline of be you, feel good, and keep growing. Because today we talk about inclusion, and I feel like that just puts inclusion at the heart of things, right? So that's great to hear. And I think we touched on employee resource groups before, but actually you brought it to life in such with all the different entities of actually what someone can get from that. Because for me, I think there's so much you can get from them. If you throw yourself at them, there's loads of opportunities. And you brought that to life really well, so thanks for doing that. I quite like Jeffrey and Monique, where you talk. One thing that might surprise you about my role, I quite like that addition on the slides, and I'm a bit jealous of the projects in Brazil. But thanks for sort of bringing everything to life there. So I'm sure we've got some questions coming through. But I guess one that we've heard, and I'll just ask it kind of now, is just, Monique, especially on the placement, sort of the assessment process, how did you find that? And have you got any tips for anyone sort of looking or on that journey now?
Okay, so there's 4 stages to our recruitment process. And the first is eligibility form. Second is the World of GSK online assessment. Third is the application form, and that has motivation questions like why you want to work at GSK, what experiences can you bring? And then the 4th stage is the assessment center. So I'll probably say my advice, especially for the application form and the assessment center, would be any questions where they ask why GSK, try and make it unique and personal to you. So think of a story or something that you value a lot that is applicable to the pharmaceutical industry, and that kind of helps you stand out. And in assessment centers, try and be as engaging and as enthusiastic as you can. Make sure you know the job description inside out, because sometimes we've come across candidates who have passions or expertise in a certain area which isn't directly applicable for the role they're applying for. So really tailor your experiences to the job description.
Okay, that sounds good. And just because you spoke about the different opportunities you've got. So procurement, for example, I hate filling out a purchase order, by the way. In large organisations, I just don't know what seems to happen. It takes forever.
Yeah.
Are you enjoying those type of things, and kind of do you have the opportunity to throw yourself at that type of stuff as well, to kind of further expose yourself to different things? Or
I would say so. It's one thing about GSK is they really value development, and everyone's here to support you. You can put together a development plan. So if there is an area that you want more experience in, or you want to develop your skills in, you've got managers and people with expertise in that field that you can reach out to and get more experience in. So procurement is not necessarily directly in my human resources role, but it is something that kind of adds breadth to my placement, I guess. So it kind of diversifies my skill set.
Sure. Okay. Thanks, Monique. And Jeffrey, I'll come to you for this next one, but it's so can I get involved with the ERG as a graduate?
And yeah, sure. So the ERGs are open to all employees, regardless of your grade, regardless of which role that you're doing. And the company really empowers the ERGs, even with funding. So for example, I had the pleasure to lead Black History Month for GSK this year. And I was allocated a budget that allowed me to invite external speakers to come and talk to all employees regarding authenticity or being Black in the workplace and these kinds of things, which again are for everybody to tune in, not just for the Black employees or the minorities. And yes, it's a very welcoming and engaging aspect of the company for sure.
Mm.
Actually, can I just ask a follow-up on that? Jeffrey, could you talk about the different ways that grads and other early talent can get involved in the ERGs, a bit like how you did? What are the different roles and things that people can take on?
Yeah, sure. So the ERGs really work the same way as it's like a company within the company. So we do have a leadership team, a senior leadership team. And because everybody is coming from different areas of the business, everybody can bring their expertise towards helping the ERG. So I can give the example of the Black History Month. And whilst I was leading it per se, I had a very strong network of volunteers with different skills. So there was a lady that worked in a media and PR team that could help with recording and editing. We had another industrial placement student that actually helped in building some profiles of famous Black people. And she was very skilled with PowerPoint, so she took over that role. So yes, essentially it's basically bring your best self, and whichever way you can contribute, that will be greatly appreciated. And in return, for sure, you're getting to work towards something that is in your day job and developing other skills. So for me, for example, I never had experience of having to deal with a talent agency to get someone else in, someone external in, and putting in place in POs and invoices. And those are skills that I picked up just wanting to help run Black History Month at GSK. So yeah, definitely a lot that you can get from them. And in terms of joining, I just happened to join a session. So I've been with GSK for 5 years, and I'll be honest, I wasn't aware of the ERGs ahead of the George Floyd's event. But that event really sparked a lot of momentum in the company to talk about racial issues. And I actually joined one of these external speaker events that GSK was hosting, and that really grabbed my interest. And I just messaged somebody and said, how do I get involved? I want to do more.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And thanks for following up there. And I think of the ERG as kind of like a win-win situation, right? Because kind of like the company can win by you investing in the ERG and making, things better for all the colleagues there. And you can also win because you get to learn and develop new skills in a safe space, right? Where you have people that can help coach you, etc. And I think it's really interesting what you said there, just in terms of not knowing that it was there until sort of the George Floyd situation, because actually it's at a time where you needed support or where you needed an ERG. That's where it was there, and that's where you found it, And I think it's really interesting to know that support is there for sort of Black people in organisations, Just a question that I can see here then, and at the top of my list is just around networking. So is it easy to network within GSK, and will that help you develop, do you think? I don't know who wants to take that.
I can take this one first, but then I'd really be happy to hear, Monique, your view as an IP student that's working across IPs in different parts of the business and also working with the apprentices. But from my perspective, it is actually really easy to network. And I think I was an IP student as well. And when I started at the company, I didn't know what networking was. I didn't know, it seemed to be this thing where it was really corporate and you had to be, really professional and have a certain ask of the other person. And actually, quite like Monique was saying in her intro, people are happy to help you, happy to have a conversation with you as early talent. And so it's actually quite a natural thing. It's really easy to ask someone for a conversation and then go from there. So I would say, yeah, networking is quite easy. Monique, over to you. You're closer to it, I suppose.
Yeah, I would say there's lots of different like groups or schemes as well. Like I'm a placement student, so we have this thing called IP Unite, which brings together all the other placement students, and we do like events and parties and different networking sessions, I guess. And they pair you up with some of the graduates who you might want to like go into their role after you graduate. So that's another opportunity to network.
Okay. It seems like there's lots of different ways, different people.
And just to build on that as well, I guess it's an advice I would have given myself before being an IP and a graduate and being in the company. Networking doesn't just happen once you get hired. You can start networking today. You can go on LinkedIn, you can look at GSK, you want to work in quality, you find a director on there, drop them a message. You know, I'm a student, this is what I'm doing. What advice would you have for me in terms of growth? What should I be doing now to help me get to that position? And again, you'll find people, more often than not, willing to spend that time with you. And that's how you start building that connection. And then you never know, that person might become your coach or your mentor. They might take an interest in your development and leverage their connections to help you grow your career. So definitely networking starts from now. And I guess, for everybody who's tuned in is already making that step in trying to reach out and get to know people that may be out of their reach at the moment, being in school or uni or in full-time employment or looking for a role.
It's a good tip, and I imagine that the three of you will have some LinkedIn requests following this then, with people saying hello. And you kind of mentioned before people apply, so just on the application process, which touched on earlier, there's a question here just around where do you think people typically fall down in the application process, and what would be your advice to avoid that?
I can go first, and Monique, Jeffrey, happy to hear your thoughts on it. I do think the importance of doing your research can't be underestimated. So at GSK, our culture, those values and expectations that I went through are really important to us. And I think Monique talked about it. We have an eligibility criteria assessment, and then we have the world of GSK. And it's really important to us that we find people that are a good fit for the company and that we're a good fit for you as well. So making sure that, our values and expectations align with your own is really important. Monique, you're probably closer to it again. Do you have comments?
I would say just make sure you know the job description inside out, because most people will fall down or not get hired because, say, for example, they say, I'm really looking forward to lab experience and working in the lab, but the actual job description for that role they've applied for has no lab experience on it. So then it just looks like you're unprepared and you're not suited for the role you're applying for. So make sure that every experience you have is tailored to the role, and what you value is like in accordance with what the role has to offer.
Good tips. And I'm just curious now, because there's 3 Black people on my screen that work at GSK, which I think is good, right? So if I'm looking at this and think, God, like it's a really diverse organisation, would you say that, or do you think, and do you have sort of senior people that you look up to, good representation there, or do you think it's, how does that feel to be like Black people at GSK, I guess?
I'm just going to say thank you for asking the honest question. I think, Jeffrey, you went off mute first. Do you want to go ahead?
It's okay, go ahead. I can add on.
Oh, okay. The honest answer is yes, I do have people that I look to, and I wish there were more of them. If I'm being completely honest and frank about it, GSK does lead the way, in our industry at least, for inclusion and diversity. We've won lots of awards. We've got lots of targets that we're trying to meet to do even better. But I think there's more to be done, right? So I can't sit back and say, oh yeah, it's a fantastic company, and you can see people like us everywhere. I think there is more to do, but those ERGs that we mentioned earlier on are fantastic resources to connect with the people that are already there. Jeffrey.
Yes, and just to build on that, so I'll also go back to when I was applying as an industrial placement student. I thought, well, I'm black. I didn't, you know, I'm not going to go to Oxford. I'm probably not going to go to Cambridge either. You know, I have no chance. Yeah. But that's really not the case, because even if today, when I look up the structure, I don't see that many black people or ethnic minorities, the work is starting from the early talent, right? So we do need you guys to apply, and ladies, everybody needs to apply, because this, you know, the color of your skin is not something that's being looked at in the application. Yeah. So again, when you're applying, okay, you want to work for GSK, but what do you really understand what you can bring to the table? Which may not necessarily be your, you know, being the top in your classrooms or in your grades. It could just be that you do some volunteering, and through that you can show that you are a committed person, that you can, you know, follow your ambition, you can stick to something. So really do not be discouraged thinking that it's a corporate company, or it's a multinational, it's a big pharmaceutical, you know, you're not from Oxford, you're not from Cambridge, and therefore you're not going to get in. That's really a myth that I would like to bust. Because as you can see, you know, we're here, right? So, and everybody can do it.
Thanks, Jeffrey. No, it's good. And yeah, no, I was sitting back, I was thinking, especially 2 black women on the screen, I think it's great, you know, so I think you're representing the company really well. I think just the final question that I see here to ask is, because all 3 of you did a placement, right? So industrial placement. So someone is just asking, do you think not doing a placement year could stop you from getting a graduate job?
I saw lots of head shakes, but I don't want to go first every time. Jeffrey, do you want to go?
Yeah, no, that's definitely not going to stop you. So if you'd gone through the IP student route, what happens is you might get a fast track to an assessment center. So you're still at the assessment center with everybody else who didn't do an industrial placement student. So don't think that because you didn't get the industrial placement student, that's going to hinder your chances. All the applications are given equal weight. It's just obviously if you were with the company before, you might skip some of the filters beforehand, but you still have to go through the assessment centers in the same way. So no, you know, if you didn't manage to get an industrial placement student, there's other things you can do. You know, you can do some volunteering, you can get a part-time job, or anything that builds and shows that, you know, you are committed to keeping busy and that you have ambition and that you work hard is definitely going to help you.
Cool. Thank you for that, Jeffrey. And so just all 3 of you, thank you very much. I think it's been really eye-opening in terms of the company, but also your own journeys and some of the things that you've got to go up to, because I think before you come along and showed us your interesting facts or things we wouldn't have put to your roles, we might have had a certain preconception. So thanks for joining, and thanks for all the students that have joined in as well. So you can go to the employer booth now to chat, ask any follow-up questions that you may have of the team. And Jeffrey, good luck with the interview that you have shortly.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.